I believe MicroStrategy is a pyramid scheme and borderline defrauding investors. A few days ago, I put out this tweet on X that said the MicroStrategy playbook. If you give us your money, we will buy Bitcoin, but you can expect to exceed Bitcoin's returns because we'll get another investor after you to be our next sucker by using made-up language that makes us sound smart. This stuff never lasts forever, and boy, did this tweet send my social media into a frenzy. And that happens generally when you have a viewpoint that is not the consensus viewpoint. And I actually replied to my own tweet before anybody even saw it and said, incoming replies from MicroStrategy shills telling me I don't know what I'm talking about but can't explain why I'm wrong. And boy, was the replies in the comment section on this tweet filled with people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I needed to do more research. Clearly, Rex, you don't understand what MicroStrategy is truly doing. But in all fairness to those people, I really didn't lay out why I believe what I believe here. I asked them to provide a counter argument as to why MicroStrategy isn't a pyramid scheme, but I didn't really provide information as to why it is a pyramid scheme. So in today's video, that's the goal. Now, I want to make one thing clear. I am a Bitcoin bull. I've been buying Bitcoin every hour of every day that I live for a reason. Making this video hurts that exposure that I have to Bitcoin via the Bitcoin I hold, but also my largest investment in my portfolio, CleanSpark, a Bitcoin mining company. This video does not financially enrich me. This actually goes against my incentive, but on this YouTube channel, I always give you my honest opinion and analysis, regardless of whether or not it benefits me and the clicks I get and my portfolio. If you guys appreciate that, I would appreciate you hitting that like button down below because I'm sure we're going to get plenty of dislikes before they even watch this video and hear my thesis out. But also subscribe if you're new here or returning and not yet subscribed. I love seeing all the new faces pop into the YouTube channel. Without further ado, let's get into this. The most common argument out there as to why people believe MicroStrategy should outperform Bitcoin and trade at a multiple to their net asset value is because of something called intelligent leverage. In fact, MicroStrategy themselves use intelligent leverage to sell their stock to investors. Let me explain to you what intelligent leverage is. To do so, I'm going to create my own corporation called RexFinance Corporation. As of today, let's say RexFinance Corporation has 10 coins and we have 1,000 shares outstanding. Every coin is selling for $2 and every share of stock is selling for $1. That means that each share has a 1% ownership of one coin on the balance sheet. There are 10 coins on the balance sheet for 1,000 shares outstanding. RexFinance Corporation, let's say, doesn't have a profitable business. We don't have any cash flows, but we want to add 10 more coins to our balance sheet. So we hit up the debt markets. To add these 10 additional coins to the balance sheet, RexFinance Corporation raises $20 via convertible debt that will convert into 20 shares outstanding over time. This means that if I lend RexFinance Corporation $20 via that convertible debt, I have a 50% interest in the assets that were purchased with my money. I gave them $20 and they purchased 10 coins. 10 coins per $20 is a 50% interest in the assets that were purchased with my money. So what does the new RexFinance Corporation balance sheet look like now? Well, they now have 20 coins on the balance sheet and 1,020 shares outstanding. If we have 20 coins and 1,020 shares outstanding, each share now represents 1.9% ownership of a coin. So the original holders of RexFinance Corporation increased their coins per share by 90%. They went from 1% ownership of a coin to 1.9% ownership of a coin, which is a 90% increase in coins per share. That sounds like a pretty good deal, but who was punished? It was the new capital that came in. It was me when I lent RexFinance Corporation my $20. I had a 50% interest in the coins that were purchased with my money, But now because I'm part of a bigger pool under RexFinance Corporation, I don't have a 50% interest in the coins on the balance sheet. I have a 1.9% interest in the coins on the balance sheet. So even though it hurt me and the new money that I put into the corporation, it benefited the existing holders of RexFinance Corporation. But let's say RexFinance Corporation wants to do this again. They want to add 10 more coins to the balance sheet. They repeat the process of raising $20 via convertible debt that will convert into 20 shares outstanding over time. And, well, that new capital that's giving RexFinance Corporation $20 should have a 50% interest in the assets that were purchased with their money. But instead, again, they're joining the pool of existing shareholders, and instead of having a 50% interest in the assets that were purchased with their money, they now just have a 2.9% interest in the assets that were purchased with their money. But anyways, let's carry on. RexFinance Corporation now has 30 coins and 1,040 shares outstanding. That's where you get the 2.9% ownership of a coin per share. That's improving from 1.9% and 1%. The original holders have now had a 290% increase in coins per share, because they're up from 1% ownership of a coin to 2.9% ownership of a coin. But the capital that came in before this recent raise only had a 53% increase in their coins per share. We get that number by finding the percent increase or decrease in ownership of a coin. So you'd take 2.9% minus 1.9% divided by 1.9%, and that's where you get the 53% increase. So whoever gave RexFinance Corporation the money on the second raise helped whoever gave RexFinance Corporation the money on the first raise, and they also helped the people that held RexFinance Corporation at the beginning, but they hurt themselves. But let's say RexFinance Corporation really gets serious. Let's say these coins have increased in value and RexFinance Corporation is having a lot of capital gains. It's been a successful strategy to add this asset to the balance sheet. So instead of adding 10 coins, this financing round, we're going to add 100 more coins to the balance sheet. So we're going to raise $200 via convertible debt that converts into 200 shares. This money would still have a 50% interest in the assets that were purchased. But instead, they're diluting themselves down to just 10.5% ownership of a coin. RexFinance Corporation now has 130 coins on the balance sheet with 1,240 shares outstanding, which means that now for every share outstanding, you have 10.48% ownership of a coin sitting on the company's balance sheet. So RexFinance Corporation used your $200 to buy 100 Bitcoin, which should mean your money has a 50% interest in the assets that were purchased. But instead, you choose to opt for a diluted 10.48% ownership of a coin of the assets in the company. You're hurting yourselves while you just propped up the original owners of RexFinance Corporation, who now have had a 1,050% increase in coins per share. The capital before this new raise had a 261% increase in coins per share. So with every new capital raise, the original owners of RexFinance Corporation are helped out the most. And then whatever financing round happened first, they're helped out the second most. And then the third financing round, they're helped out the third most, and so on and so forth. But now let's do one final raise. Let's just add 10 more coins to the balance sheet. We raised $20 via convertible debt that converts into 20 shares. Again, with that money, whoever's money it is should have a 50% interest in the assets or the coins that are purchased with their $20, but instead they choose to dilute themselves down to just 11.11% ownership of coins that are per share. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but the original owners have now had an 1,100% increase in their coins per share, but this is where it gets tricky. The capital that came in the financing round just previous only had a 6% increase in coins per share. In the first debt raise, we had the same exact deal. We wanted to add 10 more coins, and we raised $20 via convertible debt. and it resulted in a 90% increase in coins per share. But now it only the same deal. We added 10 coins to the balance sheet. We raised $20 via convertible debt, but now that only resulted in a 6% increase in coins per share. The point I'm trying to make here, and this is very important, so don't miss this, is that RexFinance Corporation, because of math, has to have bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger financing raises every time they want to add coins to the balance sheet. Otherwise, the coins per share is not going to rise to a point where previous shareholders get to the 50% interest in the assets that were purchased with their money. Sure, the original owners of RexFinance Corporation went from 1% ownership of a coin per share to 11.11% ownership of a coin per share, but that number can't keep rising unless you have bigger and bigger and bigger financing raises. If you just raise $20 every time to buy 10 coins every time, you will never get to the 50% ownership of a coin per share that you are due based on the money you gave to the company and what they did with that money. You will never get there because of, well, math. So let's ask ourselves the question, is it possible to have endless funding that grows bigger and bigger and bigger endlessly every time you want to raise money? Is that possible? And in what environment would that be possible? Well, it's possible during time periods of euphoria. And certainly there are time periods of euphoria that we experience as investors. Think back to 2021. But then the question becomes, does euphoria last forever? Is euphoria permanent? Can RexFinance Corporation continue to raise more and more and more and more and more money every single time to grow coins per share to a point where shareholders get the interest that they're due? Or is euphoria pretty sporadic and non-permanent? The answer is pretty obvious. Euphoria never lasts forever, which means there is never, ever a way for MicroStrategy to raise enough money to increase your Bitcoin per share to a point where it makes your investment worth it. Now, to be fair to MicroStrategy, we can move away from the oversimplified example of RexFinance Corporation, and we can look at the presentation they put out. And this is somewhat outdated. They have an earnings report coming up here in a couple of weeks, so we can revisit this if we need to. But these are numbers as of September of last year. We can do the math here. They give us total Bitcoin figures and then assume diluted shares outstanding figures. At the end of 2023, MicroStrategy had 189,150 Bitcoin on the balance sheet and 207,640,000 shares outstanding. That's the number here, but they went through a stock split, so it was 207 million, which means that per share, every share represented 0.091% ownership of one Bitcoin. As of September 30th, 2024, their total Bitcoin on the balance sheet increased to 252,220 Bitcoin, and their total shares outstanding increased to 235,100,000, which represents 0.107% ownership of a Bitcoin per share. Both of these figures are a far cry from 1%. They're very, very small numbers. This is what Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy investors call intelligent leverage, where per share, your ownership of Bitcoin is increasing. But remember, this comes from financing that comes after you. You actually hurt yourself when you purchase MicroStrategy stock, but you're banking on additional funding coming into the business that will, in the end, increase your ownership of a Bitcoin per share. Now, we can do a little bit more math here, and we know that today Bitcoin is trading at $102,000 per Bitcoin. We know that MicroStrategy is trading at $340 per share. If you have $102,000, you can purchase one whole Bitcoin, or you can purchase roughly 300 shares of MicroStrategy stock. If you multiply those 300 shares of MicroStrategy stock by the 0.107% ownership of a Bitcoin per share that you get if you own MicroStrategy stock, you would own 32% of a Bitcoin. So you could buy one whole Bitcoin and have ownership of one whole Bitcoin for $102,000, or you can buy MicroStrategy stock with that same $102,000 and own 32% of one Bitcoin. Why would you do that? Well, of course, it's because, MicroStrategy has intelligent leverage. And MicroStrategy has said that because of this intelligent leverage, the stock price will continue to go higher, and actually it will outperform Bitcoin itself because of this intelligent leverage. But they forget to tell you that, this intelligent leverage is entirely dependent on never-ending growing sources of funding for MicroStrategy. And they forget to tell you that for even the specialized instruments that MicroStrategy offers to the bond market, there's a limited source of funds. There's limited funds. There aren't unlimited funds to do this. And at a certain point, if you have to, they show it in their investor presentation, raise more and more and more money every year, at a certain point, you're going to run out of money for investors to give to you, whether that's because of Bitcoin falling or whether because the sources of funds for these instruments is drying up and simply isn't endless. And I think that's my issue. MicroStrategy does not transparently discuss this or explain what intelligent leverage truly is. In my tweet, I said they're using made-up language that makes them sound smart to sell their stock to prospective investors. And I truly believe that's what they're doing, because what they're doing on paper is nothing special. Any company can raise funds and then raise more funds and then raise more funds than that to increase assets per share. But at a certain point, the funds aren't endless. Yet, MicroStrategy uses intelligent leverage to try to explain that their stock will continue to go up and shareholders will continue to benefit forever. So what's the definition of defrauding investors? Google's definition is it's the illegal act of deceiving people into investing money into something that is not real or has a low chance of success. It can involve creating fake investment opportunities, lying about returns, or providing false information. MicroStrategy is assuming that their intelligent leverage will last forever. That is providing false information to prospective investors. They are rebranding a pyramid scheme and they're calling it intelligent leverage. And again, remember, this is all based on the thought process that intelligent leverage, or the pyramid scheme, is going to continue to work forever and ever and ever and ever, because there obviously are endless sources of funds out there, and they can forever continue to increase the money they raise with every raise that they do to increase your Bitcoin per share. But in reality, you're never going to actually reach the levels that you're due. But the company is going to tell you you are, because the math looks like, it's going to continue to increase over time. But they don't tell you that it's going to increase at a smaller and smaller and smaller rate over time, and you would never get there in your lifetime unless they do larger and larger and larger financing raises, which is what they show here. And if you flip this chart 90 degrees, it looks a lot like a pyramid. So now we have to ask, is it possible, even remotely possible, that if MicroStrategy's investors realize this, that they're going to decide, never mind, we're not going to buy your debt as much as we previously thought, because now we realize we're reliant on new and a larger source of funds coming in after us via more financing raises that you do in the future for us to benefit in the way we're told we're supposed to benefit from owning the stock. Is that possible? If it is possible, that's another thing that will completely ruin MicroStrategy's returns. Because if people realize what's going on and they realize what intelligent leverage really is, they're much more unlikely to give you their money and buy your convertible debt. Now, to cover myself legally, I will say that this is all my opinion. It's based on hard data and facts. This is just the conclusion I've come to. It doesn't mean it's the right conclusion, I guess. But it certainly looks like what I think it is. But let's hear it, MicroStrategy bulls. I've laid out to you what I have found with MicroStrategy stock. It is now an even playing field. Tell me how I am wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I went wrong in my numbers. Don't just tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about or I haven't done enough research to understand this, because that's a pretty poor argument. Now, I don't fault anybody if they join a pyramid scheme and they profit off of it. I hope everybody makes money in the markets, but this is not at all a risk that I'm willing to take. Anyways, with that, let me know down in the comment section what you think. Have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. Keep 10 toes on the ground and your chin up. Peace out.